Hey everybody, I'm Todd and this is Sweet Tea Guitars. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel. Welcome to the Great Guitar Build Off 2023 and my scratch build entry. Alright you guys, we left off in the last video where I announced that I'm restarting the Ceres Theta. I got my blanks glued up. I have since cut this blank back apart and re-glued it up with a tapered center. So I did change that. I thought that would add a little pizzazz to the whole thing. Here's my body blank. I need to surface this and get this thing laid out so we can get the top glued up, get it glued on here. Before we do any of that, I want to paste this paper template up that I've got and show you guys some of the changes I've made to this body. So let's get that done real quick. I'm going to do a slight carve right here, but there won't be any chrome or anything like that. I'm just going to barely taper this and bevel it, and we'll fade that out as it wraps around this corner. And this area right here alone, that upper forearm contour, that will get the chrome. I'll get some bench dogs out and we will lock that body down and get some hand plane action going on. Since I know I want everything to look nice and symmetrical on the back, I want this maple strip to end up in the center of that maple strip, even though they're not the same size. I don't want that looking all cattywampus. I'm going to do the initial center line mark on the back of the guitar. So I made the center piece 20 millimeters wide. I need 2 points of reference. Ruler. All right, so there's our center line. We'll grab our small machinist square and we're going to copy this over to the back, or actually in this case to the front. It's time to joint the top, get it glued up and ready to glue to this body. So we're going to start off by taking a little of this clear paste wax right here. I'm going to wipe down the bed. I'm also going to wipe down the side of my plane that rides on that surface. Got a nice smooth action there. Now, we're going to take this piece here, which will be our left. We're going to flip that upside down. This one we'll put face up, just in case we're slightly off a 90. All right, that's looking pretty dang good. What I want to do now is take our crimson leveling beam. I've got 180 on one side of this, 220 on the other. I'm going to take the 220 side and just sand this joint. We'll take this side upside down and do the same thing. I'm not putting hardly any pressure inward on this thing. I don't want to sand a profile into it. I can tell already that's going to be a flawless joint. That's really nice. So that's pretty much all it takes to joint the top. A good sharp number 6 plane that's set up nicely. A shooting board, which I built in about 45 minutes one day. I've been using it all along. And a leveling beam that you trust is straight and flat. If you can pull a joint together with your fingers and it becomes invisible, you know at that point that you've got a really nice joint. Bring these two together, slide them back and forth a little bit to create a bond. Check our book match and start laying some tape out. And the tape does the work of pulling the top together. I'm going to use a little longer pieces so I can reach the edge here. You want to make sure you stretch that tape, not far enough to break it, but far enough so it wants to recoil and bring the two pieces of the top together, or to keep them together actually. Again, I learned this method from Sean at Owen Luthery, and I've never looked back. This is how I glue up the top now. This saves clamps, it's less messy. We'll do the same thing on this side. Not nearly as many pieces, we just want something to counteract that pull. Anyway, there we go. One glued up top set, ready to roll. Now let's compare this to the size of the old version. It should be a little longer. And that's exactly where we are. It's a little longer, but basically no wider. So I just lengthened the body by 1.5 inches. That's going to help, I think. I want this guitar to have a slender, a longer, more slender appearance. And I think that's what we've got here. Our top's ready to take the tape off, so we can go ahead and do this. I'm going to pan down, and this has been drying for about 4.5, 5 hours, so I feel pretty confident that we're good to go. Our center line looks perfect. We're good on both ends. Take a 2mm. And I want to drill outside of where I know my body blank is going to be used. Okay, so what I want to do now is run the sander across the back of this thing, just to remove some of that roughness and get us ready for this glue up we're about to undertake. Probably 150 grit sandpaper. I could even use 80, honestly. All right, that's pretty much all I wanted to do. Just enough to knock off some of that furring. It feels nice and smooth now, even though I can still see that furring, but that's not going to hurt us. As a matter of fact, that's going to give us quite an excellent bond. Just like so. These fit nice and snug. We're not going to need any glue on this. I'll use 3 of these on each side, and then we'll use different clamps for in the middle. I've got my 2 deep reach clamps. Oh yeah, we got squeeze out all the way down. We don't need a ton of pressure on these center ones. There we go. All right, you guys, tomorrow night when I get home from work, we're going to start to work on this thing. I think that's a pretty killer combination, especially against a purple top on a body. We're going to find out. Tomorrow, we start laying out the neck. All right, you guys, when we left off the other night, I had surfaced this neck down on both sides. I did that on the drum sander. I've got a beautiful flat neck on both sides now, and I really love the coloration that this thing has ended up having. I love Padauk. Most of you guys know that already. It's one of my favorite woods for guitar building. Now, over time, what's going to happen to this Padauk, it's going to turn from this bright, vibrant orange color that it is right now. It's going to turn lovely, dark red, brown. I'm counting on that. What we want to do right now is start laying out for our truss rod route. I've got a taper in here, and I don't know how well you guys will be able to tell it, but it's thicker on this end than it is on this end on that curly maple. I tapered it about 3/16 of an inch, 4 or 5 millimeters over the length of this neck, which is currently about 32 inches long. We need to lay out a center line on this thing. Let's get this done really quick and we'll get routing. This is my headstock. This is my heel end. All right, that looks good. I'm using a 0.5 millimeter pencil for this mark. So there's my center line drawn. Here's our truss rod. Let's make some marks. First of all, let's figure out where our nut line is going to be. So I would like to retain some of this dark streaking in my headstock. And we really don't have to be that precise. All I'm wanting to do right now is figure out where my nut line is going to be. So let's grab a square. And I know it's not going to be square because I've got the tapered center. We'll make a line from both sides and then just split the difference. There we go. Okay, so there's my nut. Now we can lay the fretboard up here and do all our truss rod figuring from this. We'll trace out this fretboard shape. I want just a little room past the notch to be able to adjust my truss rod in as well as out. These truss rods are slightly shorter than the ones I normally use, and that's all right. There's where my route needs to end. So I'm going to take the square once again, and we're only going to mark that center maple piece so it doesn't get confusing. Now, what we need to figure out is where the size change is going to happen on the truss rod. So our first little hump is right here. Our second little hump is right here, and it goes all the way to the end. I can route that at the size it needs to be to incorporate the swell at the end of our truss rod. And in this little area right here, I'll chisel that. So what I'll do is use this 3/8 router bit for this end section right here. I'll chisel this out because I don't want it the full 3/8. I want a nice tight truss rod fit. And my total width on my truss rod is 5.96 millimeters. So a 6 millimeter router bit is going to give us a nice tight fit in this thing. So it's 8.76 millimeters deep. So if I am at 9 millimeters, that'll put me slightly below the surface, which is where I want to be. All right, let's get this done. That actually looks really good. I'm only slightly below the surface. That's perfect. What we want to do now is change out our router bit to a 3/8 and catch this end section down here. So I'm going to unplug the router for this. Never leave a router plugged in while you're changing the bit. Let's pan down here and pull this thing out of this jig and find out what we got here. There we go. Truss rod channel cut. We'll visually check it to make sure we're good. Oh, we're good. That's perfect. We also want to take care of squaring up this back area right here. I'll use a 6mm Narex chisel for this. There we go. Now, I've got that squared up back here. We can figure out exactly where our truss rod nut's going to go. My truss rod's set to flat right now. So let's mark off the front of our truss rod nut, and let's mark off the back. And I want to give myself about 1.5 mm, 2 millimeters on each side. That way I can make any little subtle adjustments to where this notch is going to land. All right, so there's our preliminary neck mark out right there. I'm going to jump over to the bandsaw real quick and we'll saw this off about an 1/8 inch beyond that mark we just made. That way I know I'll have plenty of room. We'll come down here on this end, give myself plenty of room. Let's take this opportunity to go ahead and get a nice dark line around here while we know it's not going to move. So I'm going to hop over to the bandsaw, rough cut the shape of this neck out. I'll come back. We'll continue to work on this thing. I'll be right back, you guys. I got the neck rough cut over on the bandsaw. We're getting ready to glue those dowel pins in. We can attach the template to the neck at that point, hop over to the router table, get this thing rough cut. So let's get that done. Just want just a little drop of super glue in each one of these holes. I'll cut these a little proud of what I think they should be. There we go. Now we want to flush these up because I may need to turn the neck upside down. I know I will, as a matter of fact, to get the outside corner. All right, so all we're worried about right now is from the nut down. So we'll stop right there at that section. And I'm cut within a couple of millimeters all the way around my neck template. So we're good to go. I'm going to hop over to the router table. I'll film this. We'll do it on the Zoom. All right, you guys. There's my neck routed, including the end. Now we're going to attach the headstock template and we'll route it. Burnish it. I'm not going to use the activator. I want those couple of extra seconds. All right, there we go. Firmly attached. Everything's ready to roll. Let's jump back to the router table. All right, you guys, there we go. Headstock cut. Let's pop this template off. That went really well. And we have a headstock. All right, so I'm just going to go up in this slot. We'll use the 6mm chisel. I'm just going to pare away that bottom ledge that's left in there from where our router bit wouldn't go quite deep enough. I think that's got us. So it's nice and tight down in there. I love it. Excellent. I'm just a hair over 43, which is where I wanted to be. My nut for the Floyd Rose is 43 millimeters, and I want to make certain that I've got a perfect fit right here. So I've marked out where I want the end of my fretboard and where I want the nut line to fall on this fretboard blank. I've left myself 15 millimeters behind the nut to be able to incorporate the swoop into the fretboard, and then I'll make certain that I can flatten that out and get my Floyd Rose locking nut installed back there. That's why I wanted to leave plenty of space behind this. I don't need an abundance of super glue, but I want enough to keep it from shifting at any point throughout this process. We'll let that dry for a moment. All right, now 24 slots. Number 1. Cocobolo fretboard slotted and ready. 24 frets. It's ready to start laying this thing out and see if we can't get this thing glued to the neck. But I think that is going to be an absolutely fantastic color combination up against that purple. So I'm safe to cut the fretboard out now to within a couple of millimeters of our outside dimensions. I'm going to hop over to the bandsaw, get that cut out. We will drill a couple of locator pins down through the fret slots, figure out where we want this thing placed. I'll run it over to the router table real quick. We'll get that notch cut into the end so we can sink it down on top of the truss rod. We'll get this thing glued up. I'm excited. I'll be right back. I got my fretboard cut down. We're ready to roll. The back sanded to 80 grit. I like to do that because it gives me a little bit of extra assurance when it comes to bonding the fretboard to the neck blank. One thing I want to make certain of is that my 24th fret is over wood. I don't want it as part of the overhang. All right, let's take our drill and a 2 millimeter drill bit. All right, you guys, we're going to route in the notch for this truss rod in just a moment. I'll get this fretboard attached to that template. We'll route that out. I'll double check my truss rod fitment, and then we're going to glue this fretboard to this neck. We'll call it a night. There's the result. So I'll take care of this length, any shortening of the length that we want to do. I'll take care of that later. No tape over the slot. This truss rod's completely wrapped, so I'm not worried about that. Back call, top call, start at the nut end. There we go, you guys. One glued up fretboard. I got squeeze out everywhere I need to have squeeze out. Everything is good. So killer. Cocobolo quarter-sawn fretboard. We need to get this thing over to the router table and flush cut this fretboard with the side of the neck. I figured I would use the small Makita router for this, clamped upside down on my workbench. I've adjusted the speed. I got the vacuum hooked up to it. Let's get this fretboard flush cut and we'll check this neck out. There we go. I've left the end, the very end down here. I've left that wide. I'll catch that with the chisel. I'm going to take my crank neck Narex right here, and we'll creep up on this. I'm already pretty much loving this thing, you guys. This neck is just really, I mean, the colors are spectacular. I got 240 grit super Acelix paper on a hard interface block. Let me grab a French curve and let's figure out the shape we want. That's kind of what I'm thinking right there. Not like a complete circle, but like an arch right there. Anyway, I'm back in the shop and I'm just now recovering from COVID. I've been out of the shop for about 7 days. I have missed the shop. I've missed you guys. Got these punched already. Got a piece of tape on my drill bit to let me know how deep to go. So I've decided I'm not going to glue these in yet. I'm going to radius the fretboard first, so we'll wrap the video up as soon as I get these drilled in. We'll talk for just a minute, and I'll let you guys know what's coming in the next video. All right, there we go. 12 holes drilled in our fretboard, and they're all pretty dang consistent when it comes to depth. Almost forgot, you guys, we gotta mark our side dots and get those drilled as well. Face dots or fret markers drilled in, side dots drilled in. All right, you guys, we're going to wrap it up right here. So this is where my neck's at right now. When we kick off the next video, I'm going to go ahead and radius the fretboard. We'll get the fret markers installed and the side dots. I'm going to finish sanding my swoop in. We'll get the tuners drilled in. I'm going to get this neck marked up, and we're going to get this neck shaped. That's probably going to take me through the end of the next video. Then we'll spend a couple of videos on the body. I'm hoping I can still meet the deadline for the GGBO, you guys. I'm going to try everything I can to make certain that I do that. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can stay up to date as I release the rest of the videos for the Ceres Theta, as well as all the other projects I got planned for the winter time. I really appreciate everything you guys have done for me. Thank you so much for all the killer comments. Don't forget to head over to Gio's channel, Tornella Guitars here on YouTube. Check out Gio's latest build. I'll see you guys in the next video. It shouldn't be too long. And as always, peace and love.